Pesticide handlers and the worker protection standard. Pesticides are chemicals that control pests. Farmers use them to protect their crops. The four most common types of pesticides are insecticides to control insects, herbicides to control weeds, fungicides to control plant diseases, and pesticides to control other pests like rodents and birds. Pesticides are a very important part of farm production and forest management. They can vary in the way they control a pest. Although most pesticides kill pests, some inhibit growth. Others affect the way pests reproduce, and some are used as barriers for pests. Pesticides can be dangerous. You and your employer have responsibilities. While pesticides are meant to help grow crops, they can be dangerous too. Pesticides can hurt people, pets, other animals, and the environment if they aren't handled carefully, according to directions on the label. By law, it is your employer's responsibility to provide you with the proper information and equipment necessary to protect you from pesticides if you're working in agricultural establishments, such as farms, forests, nurseries, and greenhouses. This law is called the Worker Protection Standard and was issued by the United States Environmental Protection Agency, also known as the EPA. But your employer can only do so much. It's up to you to learn as much as you can about pesticides and how to protect yourself and others. The Worker Protection Standard requires that you, along with other pesticide handlers, receive training in the safe use of pesticides. You are a pesticide handler if you apply pesticides or assist with applications, clean, repair, or maintain pesticide application equipment that may contain leftover pesticide, such as boom sprayers, backpack sprayers, or hoppers. Mix, load, or transfer pesticides into application equipment. Dispose of pesticides or materials with pesticides on them, such as containers. Act as a flagger for aerial application. Perform tasks as a crop advisor or scout during a pesticide application or a restricted entry interval, also known as an REI. During any of these activities, you could be contaminated with a pesticide and become injured or sick. So it's important that you receive training in how to minimize the health risks from pesticide exposure, recognize signs and symptoms of pesticide exposure and heat-related illnesses, respond to first aid and spill cleanup emergencies involving pesticides, wear, use, and maintain personal protective equipment like gloves and respirators, read and understand information on a pesticide label, transport, mix, load, apply, store, and dispose of pesticides safely, and operate mixing, loading, application, and pesticide transfer equipment safely. Protecting yourself from pesticides. Keeping pesticides from getting in or on your body is the best way to protect yourself from exposure. When handling pesticides, watch out for spills and splashes. Avoid sprays and dusts from pesticide applications. Also avoid residues, which are pesticides that remain on the plants, soil, water, equipment, clothing, or in the air after an application. Residues can also be in irrigation water. Pesticides can poison or injure you if you swallow or breathe them, get them into your eyes, or on your skin. As a pesticide handler, you are most likely to be poisoned or injured when pesticides spill or splash onto your skin. Pesticides can enter the body even more easily through cuts and wounds. When handling pesticides or working in areas where pesticides have been applied, make sure you leave the area and wash your hands with soap and water every time you take a break. If you don't wash, you may wipe pesticides from your hands or face into your mouth or eyes. It's especially important that you wash your hands and face each time before you eat, drink, chew gum, use tobacco, or put on makeup. It's also important to remember to wash your hands before using the toilet. Pesticides can be transferred from your hands to the skin on your genital region. Tobacco, food, and water can absorb pesticides. So if you bring these items to work, do not carry them with you while you work. Leave them somewhere where pesticides won't contaminate them. Signs and symptoms of pesticide poisoning. You need to be able to recognize the signs and symptoms of pesticide poisoning.
The symptoms may be very vague: weakness, fatigue, dizziness, nausea, headache. All are some of the initial symptoms seen with pesticide poisoning. When the symptoms and poisoning gets more serious, there can be other findings. Pinpoint pupils, that is the small black spot in the eye, can get very small. This is something that another individual might notice in you. Stomach problems, cramps, diarrhea can develop. Shortness of breath, chest tightness, difficulty breathing are also some of the signs of a rather severe pesticide poisoning. Profuse sweating is another important symptom of pesticide poisoning. Because these materials, the pesticides, can be absorbed into the body through the skin and the lungs, it's important to avoid those kinds of exposures. Pesticides or fumigants are irritants. They can cause burning in the eyes, the skin. They can cause dermatitis, skin rash, and also can cause long-term lung problems as well. But at least as important is the fact that pesticides can reside in other organs after getting into the body, can cause organ failure in these systems, and in some organs can cause cancer. When you feel ill from pesticides, you need to leave an area, get out of there. If you even feel symptoms similar to some of these, it's time to get out of the area and get medical advice, medical help.
If possible, call your boss or a coworker for help. Then read and follow the first aid procedures listed on the pesticide label to control the harmful effects of the pesticide. Have your boss or coworker drive you to an emergency medical center. Health effects and emergency first aid. The name, address, and phone number of the nearest emergency medical help must be posted where you work. Be sure you know where this information is so that you can get help quickly in an emergency. If you look at a pesticide label, you'll see it has an emergency first aid section called the Statement of Practical Treatment. It's important that you read or have someone explain this section before you handle the pesticide, because you should know the emergency first aid procedures before you need to use them. If you do the wrong thing in an emergency, it could make you even sicker. It's a law that your employer must provide soap, a clean change of clothing, towels, and enough water to wash the pesticides off your body near the area where you are working. Do not use water from irrigation ditches and canals. Sometimes they have pesticides in them. If pesticides do get on your clothes and skin, take your clothes off right away and wash your skin with lots of soap and water. The faster you act, the less likely you are to get sick or injured. If pesticides get in your eyes, rinse them right away with an eye flush kit or allow a gentle stream of water to flow across them. Hold your eyelids open, rinsing your eyes for at least 15 minutes. If you breathe in a pesticide, get to fresh air immediately. Call for help, then sit down and try to breathe normally. Don't walk around if you're having difficulty breathing. If you must rescue someone who has inhaled pesticides and may be unconscious, make sure that you do not expose yourself to the pesticides also. Wear the appropriate respiratory protection and move the victim to fresh air. If that person is wearing a respirator, remove it. Loosen the victim's clothing and give mouth-to-mouth resuscitation if the person is not breathing and you have been trained in this procedure. To avoid getting pesticide residue on your mouth, place a clean cloth over the victim's mouth. If you swallow some pesticide, it is extremely important that you follow the first aid directions on the pesticide label. Read the label carefully. It will tell you whether or not to make yourself vomit. There are some pesticide labels that will tell you not to induce vomiting. These pesticides are corrosive and will cause further injury if you try to vomit. If the label tells you to induce vomiting, the best way is to put your finger to the back of your throat. If you're helping someone who has swallowed pesticides, never induce vomiting or give anything by mouth if the person is unconscious or having convulsions. Get your boss or a coworker to take you to a doctor if you swallow pesticide or get it in your eyes, if you spill any concentrate or a lot of diluted pesticide on your skin, if you have difficulty breathing, if your skin shows signs of burning, rash, redness, tingling, or blistering, or if you feel sick and think you may have been poisoned by a pesticide. If possible, have someone call ahead to tell the doctor the name of the pesticide, its EPA registration number, and how you were exposed. If at all possible, take the pesticide label with you to help the doctor determine treatment. If you must take the pesticide container, don't carry it in the passenger compartment of the car. Some people are allergic to certain pesticides. These people may get a severe skin rash when the pesticide touches their skin. They may also sneeze and have a runny nose or itchy eyes when they are near the pesticide. If a pesticide affects you this way, try wearing some extra protection like goggles and a respirator. If these symptoms continue, you may need to stay away from that particular pesticide. An allergic reaction may not occur on your first or second exposure. However, your body may become sensitized to that pesticide. And if you are exposed to it again, you may have an allergic reaction. There are some harmful effects you may get from pesticides that won't show up for a long time. Studies on animals show that some pesticides may cause cancer or permanently harm body systems. Some pesticides may cause pregnant women to miscarry or have children with birth defects. Scientists don't know the long-term effects pesticides may cause, so don't take any chances. When you handle pesticides or work in areas where pesticides have been applied, do everything you can to keep them from getting on or in your body. Personal protective equipment. By wearing personal protective equipment, or PPE, you can help keep pesticides from getting on or in your body. Your employer must provide you with all the PPE listed on the pesticide label for the job you'll be doing. You are required by law to wear it and use it correctly.
Personal protective equipment includes such items as gloves, boots, boot covers, chemical protective coveralls, wide brim hard hats, safety goggles with the indirect vents, and of course, respirators. It's always important to remember that there are different types of respirators for different types of pesticide formulations. And you always want to make sure that you read the pesticide label to make sure that you select the proper type of respirator. Many pesticide labels also require the use of protective clothing, such as long-sleeve shirts, long pants, socks, and shoes. Now, PPE is made from different materials. If the pesticide label does not specify what material to choose, it's important that you choose material that's chemical resistant to that particular pesticide. Now, chemical-resistant PPE can be made of a variety of different types of chemical-resistant material, including PVC and rubber. Now, these materials, as you know, are waterproof, and they're also good choices for gloves, footwear, aprons, and hats. Gloves that are made out of cotton and leather should not be worn when handling pesticides. As you know, these materials will allow your skin to breathe, but they will also allow then the pesticide to penetrate to your skin.
All PPE materials must be clean and ready to use. Look for tears, holes, other defects, or signs of excessive wear, such as a difference in color or flexibility in the PPE materials. If you find a problem, tell your boss and ask for a replacement. Follow these easy rules for wearing PPE correctly. Keep your pant legs over the top of your boots so pesticide won't run down into your boots. Wear chemical-resistant gloves that reach at least halfway to your elbow. If you are applying pesticides toward the ground, wear your sleeves over the outside of your gloves so that pesticides won't run down into the gloves. If you're spraying or working above your shoulders, wear your sleeves inside your gloves. Make sure you choose gloves with cuffs. Wear loose-fitting clothes for comfort and protection. Also wear coveralls over your regular work clothes to give your body good protection against most pesticides. Button your shirt collar at the neck to keep pesticides from getting inside your clothes. Use a chemical-resistant apron to keep splashes and spills from soaking your coveralls while you are mixing and loading pesticides or cleaning equipment. If your hood is separate from your coverall, keep the hood's bottom edges outside the coveralls to protect yourself from pesticide runoff. When you're working, pay attention to your personal protective equipment. If any of your PPE gets a hole in it, stop work right away and replace it. If the pesticides get through the damaged equipment to your skin, wash immediately, then put on clean PPE. Respirators. Respirators protect you from breathing pesticide-contaminated air. You should use different types of respirators for different pesticide formulations. The product label will say whether you must use a respirator, and if so, what kind of filter, cartridge, or canister to use. When a respirator is required, the product label will also give the MSHA NIOSH approval code prefix for the respirator. MSHA stands for the Mine Safety and Health Administration. NIOSH for National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. These federal agencies evaluate and approve respirators. Before you put on a respirator, double-check to make sure that the MSHA NIOSH approval number on the respirator matches the number on the product label. Styles of respirators include dust mist filtering respirators, chemical cartridge respirators, canister respirators, and a self-contained breathing apparatus.
The dust mist filter respirator offers protection from small particles in the air. They cover the nose and the mouth, and they filter out dust, mist, powders, and particles. It's important to remember that these respirators have the MSHA NIOSH approval number prefix of TC-21C. A chemical cartridge respirator uses cartridges that absorb harmful vapors and gases. Now, this type of respirator can either have a half mask or a full face. Your chemical cartridge respirators are used with pesticides that have an MSHA NIOSH approval prefix number of TC-23C. Now, if you use a powered air purifying respirator, it may reduce respiratory stress and also heat stress. The canister respirator is designed to remove specific contaminants in the air. The canisters in these respirators contain materials to remove dust and mist, and they also absorb harmful vapors and gases. Now, the lifespan of these canister respirators is short. Usually it's only 12 minutes to sometimes 60 minutes, depending on their size. Canister respirators are used with pesticides that have the MSHA NIOSH approval number prefix of TC-14G. Now, many cartridges and canister respirators cannot be used in fumigation. It's also important to note that filter, canister, or cartridge respirators should not be used in low oxygen environments. A self-contained breathing apparatus uses a tank with fresh air and provides complete respiratory protection against toxic gases and oxygen deficiency. A self-contained breathing apparatus is used with pesticides that have an MSHA NIOSH approval number prefix of TC-13F. If you have to wear a respirator and you don't know how to wear one, make sure that you have someone who's qualified show you how to use it first and that they perform a fit test. Most respirators must fit tightly around your face in order for them to work correctly. Every time you put your respirator on, make sure that you do a fit check. This can be done by placing your hand over the exhalation valve and exhaling slowly. If no air leaks out around the seams, then you have a good fit. You can also do a positive pressure test by placing both hands over your cartridges or filters and inhaling slightly. The respirator should collapse around your face. If you can hold your breath while this happens for about 10 seconds, then you also have a good fit. Make sure that you always perform your fit check whenever you put on your respirator. If you have facial hair or beard or facial scars, there are many respirator styles that will not protect you because you won't get a proper seal. However, you can protect yourself only by using respirators that are specifically designed to supply you with filtered air. If you're wearing a respirator that filters out dust or mist, make sure that you change the filter when you find it difficult to breathe, if the filter gets torn or damaged in any way or becomes wet. If you're wearing a respirator that removes vapors and gases, change the cartridge or canister immediately if you smell pesticide as you put on the respirator, if you taste or smell the pesticide, or if you feel the pesticide burning or stinging your nose or throat.
Follow the manufacturer's instructions on when to replace filters, cartridges, and canisters, even if you don't notice a problem. If there are no instructions, then replace filters, cartridges, and canisters at the end of each workday, that is 8 hours. Your employer should help you determine how often these parts need to be changed and provide replacement parts for you. If you have heart or respiratory disease, you may be unable to wear a respirator. Heat stress. Be aware of heat stress, especially if the weather is warm or hot and you're wearing personal protective equipment.
The symptoms of heat stress are very similar to those from pesticide poisonings. Many of the same symptoms, weakness, fatigue, dizziness, a stomach cramp, are all associated with heat stress, just like they are from pesticide poisonings. There's some very important differences, however. Generally, you would not be sweating profusely with heat stress, and in fact, that's one of the findings of heat stress that's an important warning. When you stop sweating, that's an indication of the seriousness of the problem. You generally would find a red skin, a red face, rather than the pinpoint pupils that would be more likely found with pesticide poisoning alone. Get out of the sun when you feel these effects. Get into the shade, drink fluids, and get help because of the seriousness of this heat stress illness.
If you suspect that someone has severe heat stress, it's very important to cool the person down as quickly as possible, and then get to a doctor right away. To cool a person down, take off their outer clothing, pour water on them, fan them, and wrap them loosely in wet cloths or towels. Keep pouring water on and fanning the person while taking them to a doctor. If you are new to the job or returning to work after being sick, or if the weather suddenly becomes hotter, you may need to adjust to working in the heat gradually. To avoid getting heat stress, you should drink lots of water before, during, and after work. On warm days, drink at least 1 cup of water every half hour. Drink more if you're sweating a lot. Also take more breaks out of the sun and wear a hat. Drinking alcohol and taking some prescription drugs can make heat stress worse. On very hot days, try to do jobs that require PPE early in the morning or early evening when it's not as hot. How to read pesticide labels. The 2 most important sources to get information about pesticides are the label and your employer. Your employer must make sure you have all the information you need from the pesticide label. Even so, it's a good idea to study the label yourself. The pesticide label has a number of sections that you should be familiar with. Look for the brand name on the front of the label. The name is usually in large, bold print. Directly below the brand name is the list of chemicals or active ingredients, the percentage of each active ingredient, and the inert ingredients. Active ingredients are the ones that kill or control the pest. Pesticides with very similar brand names may contain different active ingredients or different percentages of active ingredients. It's important to read the label of a new product thoroughly, even if the brand name is familiar to you. The type of pesticide, insecticide, herbicide, fungicide, or other kind of control agent is often on the front of the label. The EPA registration number is usually on the front too. These signal words, caution, warning, or danger, tell you how poisonous the pesticide is. The signal word is in large type on every pesticide label. Look for it before you start. Caution is used for pesticides that are the least poisonous, but these kinds of pesticides can still harm you if you're not careful. Warning means the pesticide is more poisonous or irritating than those with a caution label. It won't take much of these pesticides to make you sick or irritate your skin or eyes. Danger means that the pesticide is very poisonous or irritating. Even a small amount, less than a teaspoon, can kill you if swallowed or allowed on your skin. The products with danger on the label may severely burn your skin and eyes. Some labels have a skull and crossbones and the word poison printed in red ink along with the signal word danger. These pesticides are highly poisonous. They can make you very sick or even kill you if they aren't handled correctly. When handling these pesticides, your employer must have someone check on you every 2 hours to make sure you're all right. Also on the label is the Statement of Practical Treatment. This is the first aid section. It tells you what you should do if you swallow, inhale, or get the pesticide in your eyes or on your skin. On some labels, the section Note to Physician gives information on symptoms and treatment of poisoning. If you or someone you know needs medical treatment, it's important to bring a clean copy of the pesticide label with you so the doctor can treat you properly. The section on the label called Precautionary Statements will tell you which parts of your body need special protection. Some labels will tell you that the pesticide will burn your eyes or skin if it gets on them. Other labels will tell you not to breathe the pesticide. Also in this section, it tells you what kind of personal protective equipment to wear when you handle the pesticide. In the environmental hazards section of the label, you can find out whether you must take extra care to protect bees and wildlife or to keep the pesticide out of groundwater and surface water, such as streams and lakes. The Directions for Use section lists information on mixing, loading, and application. Storage and disposal information is often in its own section. The agricultural use requirements listed in this section state that this pesticide must be used only in accordance with its labeling and with the Worker Protection Standard. All agricultural pesticides have a restricted entry interval, or an REI. The REI is the time immediately after a pesticide application when entry into the treated area is limited. This interval can be from 12 hours to several days. The REI is listed on the pesticide label under agricultural use or next to the crop or application method. Although there are few exceptions, early entry workers and pesticide handlers are usually the only people who, properly trained and wearing the appropriate PPE, are allowed to enter the treated area during an REI. If you need to get more information about the pesticide, the label includes the manufacturer's name, address, and emergency number to call in case of spills and exposure accidents. Transporting and storing pesticides. If you need to move pesticides from one place to another using a car or truck, remember, before you leave, ask your employer what to do if you have a spill. Carry spill cleanup materials with you. Make sure pesticides are in the back of the truck or in the trunk of the car, not inside with you. Do not allow people, pets, or livestock to ride in the same compartments as the pesticides. Don't put food, feed, or clothes near the pesticides. Tie the pesticide containers down or secure them in other ways to make sure that they do not fall over or roll around. Keep sharp objects such as tools away from containers. If you work in a storage area for pesticides or pesticide containers, make sure the containers are closed tightly and are stored upright so they cannot tip over and spill. Check all containers for leaks, breaks, or weak spots. Tell your boss right away if you see a problem. Clean up spills and leaks right away. And lock the storage area to make sure that people and animals cannot get into the storage area when no one is working there. Mixing and loading pesticides. As part of your job as a pesticide handler, you may mix and load pesticides, a job that requires special care. Read the label directions to find out how much pesticide you need, and then measure the amount carefully. Using too much or too little can cause problems for the applicator, the crop, and the environment. Use the label information to determine how much pesticide you'll need based on the size of the area that you will be treating and the size and kind of application equipment you'll be using. Pesticides that have not yet been mixed are often in a much stronger or concentrated form, and this can be especially dangerous for you. When mixing and loading, carefully follow the label directions and these safety practices. Wear extra protection like a chemical-resistant apron over your other PPE. You'll probably need to wear protective eyewear too. If you are opening a bag, place it on a firm, flat surface. Open it carefully using a sharp knife or scissors. Label the knife or scissors for pesticide use only. If you rip the bag open, dust can fly out and get on your skin and into your eyes, mouth, and lungs. The pesticide may not pour as evenly if it is poured through a tear. Pour carefully to avoid splashes and spills. Make sure your face and eyes are well above the container while you're pouring. Get some help if the container is too big or heavy for you to lift and pour easily. When you add water to the mix or spray tank, don't let the pesticide mix run back up through the hose and into the water source. Keep the hose above the level of the liquid in the tank, or use special equipment like a check valve to prevent backflow. Never mix, load, or clean application equipment near ponds, streams, wells, or ditches. Rinse water containing pesticide could overflow and run off into these water sources. Cleaning up pesticide spills. Pesticide spills can be harmful to yourself, other people, animals, and the environment. They can occur during most handler tasks. Here are some preliminary steps you can take if a spill occurs. Think the situation through clearly. First, protect yourself, other people nearby, and the surrounding area, especially water sources. Never clean up a spill unless you have the right PPE and cleanup materials. If you don't know what to do, call for help and wait until it arrives. If it is a big spill, send someone for help if you can. Don't leave the spill area if no one else is there. There must be someone at the site to warn others of the danger. To clean up a spill properly, you must practice the 3 C's of spill management. The first step is control. You have to make sure the spill is stopped. That includes shutting off the mixing or application equipment if it is leaking, turning any fallen container upright, or putting a broken container inside another container. The next step is contain, which means stopping the spill from spreading. Use soil, sand, or some other suitable material to make a dike around the edge of the spill. Then rope or seal off the area so that other people cannot walk through it. The last step is cleanup. Do not use water when cleaning up. This will add volume, spread the spill, and make it worse. Instead, use soil, sawdust, clay, cat litter, special spill sponges, or other absorbent materials to soak up liquid spills. If the pesticide or absorbent material is likely to blow around, moisten it very slightly with water or cover it with a tarp. After the spill has been absorbed, sweep it up along with the cleanup materials into plastic containers or special drums supplied for such emergencies. After everything is cleaned up, ask your employer what to do with the waste. It must be disposed of properly. Cleaning and disposing of pesticides and pesticide containers. Always check the pesticide label for directions about disposal of pesticide containers. If the label directs you to triple rinse or pressure rinse, do so as soon as the container is empty. Follow these steps when rinsing a container. If you add water to the pesticide mixing tank, use clean water to rinse the empty container as soon as you have finished mixing. Fill the empty container 1/4 full of clean water. Put the cap on or close the opening tightly. Carefully shake or roll the container so that the water rinses the inside completely. Pour the rinse water from the container into the mixing tank, allowing it to drain for 30 seconds. Repeat this rinsing procedure 2 more times. You can also pressure rinse a pesticide container using a pressure rinse nozzle. Follow these steps. Insert the nozzle into the side of the container. Turn the nozzle in all directions and rinse the inside of the container for at least half a minute. Be sure hollow handles are rinsed. Drain the container into the mixed tank while rinsing. If a container cannot be rinsed, empty it into the mixing tank as well as you can, then close it tightly. Empty containers should be locked away until they can be disposed of properly. Even well-rinsed containers may still contain small amounts of pesticides. You should never leave empty containers lying around the work site or anywhere else. And don't use them for any other purpose. Most importantly, do not take these containers home under any circumstance. Your employer will tell you what to do with empty pesticide containers and leftover pesticides. Lock them in a storage area until they can be disposed of properly. Even though pesticide labels have directions for the disposal of pesticides and pesticide containers, disposal requirements can vary from state to state, even within states. Some pesticide containers can be returned to the dealer after they have been properly cleaned. Your employer should check with local pesticide enforcement authorities and tell you what to do. Flagging. If you are flagging for an aerial application of pesticides, make sure you wear all the personal protective equipment that the label requires. Clear the area of all people, pets, or livestock, especially in areas where the pesticide could drift. Move out of the way before the aircraft flies overhead so that pesticides don't get on you directly. If possible, move upwind so that the pesticides will be blown away from you. Applying pesticides. Your job may sometimes require you to apply pesticides. When you do, make sure you follow the application instructions on the pesticide label. Be sure you protect yourself, others, and the environment. Before you start, put on all the personal protective equipment listed on the pesticide label. Then carefully check out the application equipment. Make sure there are no leaks. If you need to fix the application equipment, turn it off first to keep pesticide from getting on you. When you're ready to start, check the area where you'll be working. Make sure there are no people, pets, or livestock in or near the area. Never apply pesticides so that they can get on people directly or through drifting. If you are applying pesticides outdoors, check the weather conditions before you start. Don't apply pesticides when there is a wind that could carry the pesticide out of the target area. Even a light wind can blow pesticides off target. Don't apply pesticides when rain is expected if the pesticide is one that could be washed off the treated surface. Check to see if there are ponds, streams, or wells in or near the area to be treated. Make sure pesticides are kept out of surface water. Never apply a pesticide so that it can drift or run into wells or water supplies. Check the environmental hazard statement on the pesticide label. Take special care to avoid harming bees and other wildlife that may be in or near the area you plan to treat. It's important that you stay alert while you're applying any pesticide. Look at the area you have just treated to be sure you're applying the pesticide evenly. Watch for clogged nozzles or hoppers. Do not use your mouth to blow out nozzles or hose lines. If you need to clean a nozzle, use a non-metal nozzle cleaning tool. Using a sharp metal instrument can ruin the nozzle. When you finish the application, don't leave the equipment in the field if irresponsible people or children can get to it. Don't let the equipment sit for a long time with pesticides in or on it. Clean and put the equipment away as soon as you're done. The Worker Protection Standard requires agricultural establishment owners to notify agricultural workers about pesticide applications. You, as a handler, may be assisting the owner with this notification. The notification may be oral notification or require field posting. Cleaning up. If the equipment needs to be cleaned, ask your employer how to clean it if you don't know how. Follow your employer's instructions and remember to keep your PPE on until the application equipment is put away. When finished with a pesticide handling job, take off your PPE. That way you and others won't risk contact with any pesticides that may be on your personal protective equipment. When taking off your PPE, be careful not to get pesticides on your skin or inner clothing. Here are some safe practices for removing your PPE. Wash the outside of your gloves while you're still wearing them. If possible, keep your gloves on while taking off your other PPE. Pull off your coveralls and take off the other PPE. If you've already removed your gloves, touch the outsides of your PPE as little as possible. Put all your used PPE in a place by itself until it can be disposed of. You must not wear or take home PPE that has not been cleaned. Once all your PPE is off, wash your hands, face, and other exposed skin. Use lots of soap and water when washing. If your employer asks you to clean PPE while at work, be sure you know how to do it safely. Hand wash the inside and outside of PPE like gloves, boots, and respirator face pieces. Use a mild soap or detergent and very warm water to wash most PPE. If some types of equipment cannot be cleaned, they should be thrown away if they no longer protect you. This includes respirator filters, cartridges, canisters, and some types of coveralls, gloves, shoe coverings, and aprons. Your employer should tell you when to throw them out. Throw away coveralls and other work clothes that are soaked with pesticides. Even a thorough washing won't remove all the pesticides. Even if you wear coveralls over regular work clothes, your work clothes may still pick up small amounts of pesticide. If you have been working with highly toxic pesticides or believe there may be pesticide residues on your work clothes, you should shower thoroughly and put on clean clothes at the end of your workday. Put contaminated work clothes into a separate container until they can be washed. If you ride home wearing contaminated clothing, you will contaminate the inside of your vehicle and possibly other people as well. Do not let people touch your contaminated work clothes. The pesticides can rub off onto anyone who touches the clothes, so be especially careful to keep them out of reach of children and pets. When washing contaminated work clothes, follow these washing procedures. Separate your work clothes from other regular laundry. Wash the work clothes in a separate load in the washer. Wash only a few items at a time to allow plenty of agitation and water for dilution. Use the highest water level setting. Use a heavy-duty detergent and hot water for the wash cycle. Use 2 rinse cycles and use warm water if possible. Use 2 complete machine washer cycles to wash items that are moderately to heavily contaminated. If possible, hang your work clothes outside on a clothesline to dry for at least 24 hours in an area away from pesticides. Sunlight will help break down the pesticides that may remain in the clothing. Before doing the family laundry, run the washer without the clothes through at least 1 additional cycle using hot water and detergent to clean the machine. By using the clothes dryer, you may contaminate other clothes over a long period of time. If you must use a dryer, use the hottest setting to help break down the residues. Working safely with pesticides. Working safely with pesticides is important. Your safety and the safety of people, animals, and the environment around you depends on how careful you are. Don't be afraid to ask your employer for the personal protective equipment as mentioned on the pesticide label. Remember, you have a right to information about pesticides that you handle from pesticide labels, safety data sheets, or other fact sheets. Information at a central location, which includes a safety poster, the name, address, and phone number of the nearest emergency medical center, information about the pesticides applied within the last 30 days at your workplace, adequate safety training in a language that you can understand, the PPE necessary for safe handling of pesticides, including information on the proper cleaning and maintenance of the PPE, plenty of soap, water, towels, and a change of clothing available when you are working around pesticides, a clean location to remove the PPE, wash yourself, and change into clean clothing after pesticide handling tasks. Transportation to a medical center if there is reason to believe you're sick or injured because of pesticides or heat stress. The law says that your employer may not punish you in any way for making sure you get all the protections you're entitled to. While pesticides are a useful part of farming and other operations, it is important that you handle them correctly for your safety and the safety of others. As part of your worker protection safety training, your trainer must respond to any questions you may have. If you have any questions about the information presented in this video, please ask the person showing you this tape to explain it to you right away.